What's going on, YouTube? Today is the day we are going to be running Chesnaught in X and Y. We'll be using the slow, grass, and fighting type, with an emphasis on slow. At 64 base speed, we probably won't be outspeeding much. However, with 122 base defense, things aren't going to be hitting us too hard, especially in the early game. And the coverage Chesnaught gets from TMs and its level up moveset is pretty interesting. We start with Belly Drum, and we get access to moves like Shadow Claw for those annoying psychic types later on, and Stone Edge and Rock Slide for the annoying fire types later on. I know that's going to come in handy against Malva. In terms of hidden power typing for Chesnaught, I'm going to be rolling Hidden Power Dark, but have no plans on using it, along with going with a Jolly Nature to increase our speed and lower our special attack. But let's go ahead and pick this playthrough up in Santaloon City's gym. While heading through Santaloon Forest, which is essentially Viridian Forest but just kind of updated, shout out to Master Sword Objection for pointing that out to me, we learn the move Rollout, which is going to be my move of choice in this gym. And it's going to be no surprise that when Rollout actually hits, it makes quick work of both Surskit and Vivian. On Route 4, I can pick up some optional training, along with getting the TM for Return from Professor Sigamore's assistants at the end of the route. I battle the Professor for my Kanto starter, but like with the last few runs, after I defeat Professor Sigamore, the Pokemon that I can pick from are bugged. And this time I pick Sandile because, well, it just seems like the best choice. Going forward, maybe I'll just edit the Pokemon in PK Hex to be Squirtle. That way I have my HM Mule going forward. But anyway, in Camphirier Town, I pick up some of the important items, namely this Ether. And there's also a house here where you can show a guy a certain type of Pokemon, and you can get a berry from him. Thankfully, I'm able to catch the type of Pokemon he's looking for, and I'm able to get a Cherry Berry, which is going to come in handy when we face Grant. Anyways, we head to Parfum Palace, get the rare candy, the HM for Cut, find the Furfrou, watch some fireworks, and then we can get the Poke-Flute, along with the TM for Protect. We can wake up the Snorlax, and then head to Amberette Town and do our normal errands, like getting the TM for Rock Smash, picking up the Heart Scale, talking to the scientist about some fossils, and take a ride on a Rhyhorn to Glittering Cave, where we have to put a stop to Team Flare's evil plans. And within Glittering Cave is going to be a useful TM for later down the line in this run. And that TM is Shadow Claw. We do have to deal with Team Flare at the end of Glittering Cave, but they aren't a challenge just yet. We get the Jaw Fossil as a prize for doing away with them, I can get the Dowsing Machine back in town, pick up the rare candy, and finally head to Salage City, where we're going to take on Grant right away. And this battle is a bit overkill. Because of the Cherry Berry, we can heal off the paralysis from Thunder Wave, and I set up Belly Drum the first turn. And from here, with our speed intact, both Amora and Tyrant are one-shots. Not only do we get the prize for Rock Tomb, which will come in handy later on, but I can replace Vine Whip with Needle Arm at the end of the battle, thanks to leveling up. Before leaving Salage City, since we can now use Strength outside of battle, I make sure to get the TM for Aerial Ace. I can head to Route 10 where I can beat up on some more trainers here for additional training, along with running into Team Flare once again, where we eventually make our way to Geosenge Town, which we're going to make our way back here later on in the run for the most exciting part of the run. We can make our way through Reflection Cave, and then arrive in Shalor City. And there's two important TMs I want to get from the Pokemon Center, Poison Jab and Dig. We head to the Tower of Mastery next to take on our rival Callum, and I make a terrible mistake in this battle. And it's the fact that I try to set up on Meowstic. You see, I thought we would outspeed Meowstic, but I was horribly wrong. Because of this, when I set up Belly Drum, I only have 8 HP remaining, and Disarming Voice is able to take me out. In the next battle though, I just go for Rollout right away. And although it takes 3 turns of Rollout to knock out Meowstic, due to the increased power, we're able to one-shot Brazen, along with it also being super effective, and Absol is also a one-shot. With Callum out of the way, we can go ahead and take on the gym leader Karina next. And learning from the Greninja video, this is why I picked up the TM for Aerial Ace. And I make the same mistake in this battle that I did in the rival battle with Callum, and that's setting up Belly Drum, because Hawlucha outspeeds and one-shots me. And I don't lose not once, but twice. I'm one level away from learning the move Spiky Shield, so I decide to pop a rare candy to do that, and decide to forget Belly Drum. As good as this move has been, we're going to get some better setup moves later on. I've also added Rock Tomb to my moveset for this battle just for Hawlucha. Mienfoo still gets off a fake out but goes down in one Aerial Ace, and against Hawlucha, it still outspeeds and Flying Press does big damage, but the speed drop from Rock Tomb allows me to outspeed it the next turn. I can set up a Spiky Shield, and then take it out with Aerial Ace on the next turn. From here, all that's left is Machoke. I set up a Spiky Shield just to be on the side of precaution. It goes for Rock Tomb, and we get a critical hit Aerial Ace to take it out. And now we get access to a few stab moves. Power Up Punch for winning, Low Sweep from the Tower of Mastery, we can get Surf from our rival as we leave town, and then we can continue on Route 12 to continue training. Our next gym leader is Ramos, and unfortunately for Chesnaught, it can't learn acrobatics, so Aerial Ace is going to continue to stay on our moveset for the time being. But like in every run, I'm going to pick up the leftovers because these are going to come in handy later on, especially when we face the Elite Four. And if you remember at the beginning of the video when I showed Chesnaught's move pool, it has a wide variety of TMs it can learn, all of which we're going to be taking advantage of pretty soon in the run. But for now, let's pick this up outside of Comarine City Gym in our next rival battle against Callum. As always, he leads with Meowstic. I really need to remember to start leading off with Spiky Shield for these Pokemon that go for Fake Out on the first turn. But what I'm really thankful for is that this thing isn't using its Psychic attacks and is using the weaker Disarming Voice. It goes down in 2 Seed Bombs, and next is Brazen. While I don't have Rollout anymore like in the first battle, I still do have Rock Tomb. It doesn't get the one-shot, and it's able to retaliate with Psybeam. Thankfully, it doesn't do too much. We knock it out on the next turn with Aerial Ace. We level up going into the final Pokemon, Absol. Having a move like Power Up Punch or even Low Sweep on my moveset probably would have knocked this thing out in one shot, but it's 2 Seed Bombs to knock it out as all it gets off is a weak Quick Attack. And let's pour one out for poor Ramos really quick. It's unfortunate that he's been a pushover thus far in all of these runs, but maybe, just maybe, there's going to be a Pokemon that has fits against Ramos. Maybe it will be Barbaracle. Who knows? But for Chesnaught, Poison Jab and Aerial Ace are enough to take down the team. Up next is the Kalos Power Plant, and on the way there, I swear, I get every wild encounter under the sun in the overworld. Thanks to the power of video editing, we don't need to watch any of those battles, and for the power plant itself, the trainers with Golbats and Swalots actually give Chesnaught a bit of trouble, and I actually did have to redo this section because, well, I didn't save and I had to reset. The admin and Aliana at the end of the power plant don't give me any trouble whatsoever. We have our first encounter with ZA afterwards, we can pick up the rare candy outside of Lumio City, and then we can watch Clement restore power to his gym, and then challenge him. And my moveset is still best equipped to get through the power plant, and not for this gym battle. Against his lead Emolga, I have nothing that's super effective or even neutral damage against it, so I go for Power Up Punch to boost my attack. Aerial Ace does over half to me, and I go for Spiky Shield just to block some of the damage. Power Up Punch does a little bit more thanks to the attack boost, and Aerial Ace brings me to 10 HP. I'm able to finish it off the next turn, but next is the Magneton, and this thing has Sturdy. Because of that, I won't be able to one-shot it, and it can just retaliate with Thunderbolt to finish me. I make sure to change up my moveset before the next battle, to Rock Tomb, Bulk Up, Spiky Shield, and Seed Bomb. Rock Tomb is only for the Emolga, which gets a critical hit one-shotting it. And next is Magneton. I don't have anything that does super effective or neutral damage to it, so I just go for Seed Bomb. It's a 3-hit KO as it sets up electric terrain and then goes for Mirror Shot, not doing much. Thunderbolt probably would have done more, but I'm able to knock it out over 3 turns. I go for Spiky Shield on the final Pokemon Heliolisk to try to stall out the electric terrain. Rock Tomb does about a third, as Thunderbolt doesn't do as much as I thought it would. I go for Seed Bomb on the next turn, and that's 5 gym badges in hand. Before leaving Lumiose City, I'm going to pick up the TMs for Bulldoze and Swords Dance, one of which will go on my moveset right away. We exit to Route 14 where we're met by Callum and Trevor and challenged by Callum right away. And you'll see that I remembered to change up my moveset before this battle. We now have Swords Dance and Shadow Claw on our moveset. I start by setting up a Swords Dance as Psychic hits me pretty hard. But from here, Shadow Claw is able to do work on his team. Surprisingly, we outspeed Delphox. It's no surprise that it's a one-shot. And for Absol, I have Seed Bomb for it. And I want to be transparent with something, and that's the fact that the next rival battle didn't record for some reason, but it's very similar to this one. Set up a Swords Dance and sweep. We're going to continue some additional training until we get to Laverne City, and at the end of this route, I've never shown it off, but you go into a scary house, get told a scary story, but I'm going to make a beeline for the gym once we arrive. When preparing for this run, both Valerie and Olympia were 2 gym leaders that I thought would give Chesnaught trouble, and is one of the reasons I picked up the TM for Shadow Claw earlier. However, I think going with 2 Swords Dance as set up on Mawile was a bit overkill, as from here we're able to one-shot sweep her entire team with Shadow Claw. And it's more fun plotline stuff next, the Pokeball Factory. It was suggested to me to put a bunch of ball jokes in this section, but Google doesn't really have any good ones. So why don't we talk about Chesnaught's performance thus far? Besides a few bumps and bruises here and there, it's outperformed so far what I thought it would do. The wide variety of moves has really helped, but I've also been restricting my moves some. Although I do have heart scales to add moves back onto my moveset, I really don't want to delete Spiky Shield in case there's a difficult battle where I really need to stall, or just do a little bit of chip damage to the Pokemon. Speaking of stalling, we're now past the part of the Pokeball Factory. We can get the Master Ball as a prize, I do some vitamin shopping before leaving town, buying 3 Carbos, and then it's off to Route 15 to do more additional training, because we're going to need it for what's coming up. Normally, I've been picking up the PP up on this route as well, but because TMs are reusable, and I really haven't had much use for the PP up in prior runs, I decided to skip it in this one. However, I'm not going to skip picking up the rare candy on Route 16. Once we arrive in Dendemille Town, it's time to go through Frost Cavern to once again do away with Team Flare. I decided to skip a lot of the optional trainers within here, which, in my opinion, was a mistake, which you'll find out shortly why. The Grunts and Mabel at the end of the cave pose no challenge at all. We can take a ride on a Mamoswine to Anastar City, which again, I mentioned that the rival battle didn't get recorded before the gym battle, but just know that it was a one-shot sweep after setting up with Swords Dance. Now we can take on Olympia, who I thought would give Chesnaught some trouble, but it's actually quite the opposite. She leads with Sigilif. I set up a Swords Dance as it sets up both a Reflect and Light Screen. Because of Reflect, Shadow Claw is a 2-hit KO on it. After we knock it out, we level up and have the option to learn Pain Split, which, in the beginning of this run, I thought I would make use of this move, but I really don't have any use for it now. Slowking comes out next, and we have Seed Bomb for it to one-shot it. All that's left is Meowstic, and while it gets off a Fake Out and a Psychic that does huge damage, Reflect is worn off by this point, so Shadow Claw is able to get the one-shot. We all know what part of the run is coming up next. Lysander's Labs. And earlier when I mentioned that I should have fought those additional trainers in Frost Cavern, we're about to find out why, because Lysander's team actually gives Chesnaught some trouble. And I tried this fight multiple times, and even tried using the rare candies in my inventory to see if I stood any better of a chance. But the best I did was making it to Gyarados once. I'm only going to show my first attempt here. I set up a Swords Dance against Mienfoo, which goes for Acrobatics, bringing me to 23 HP. I'm able to knock it out, but I have nothing for the following Murkrow. While Shadow Claw is able to bring it into red health, Aerial Ace is able to finish me off. and had I made it past it, I would have had nothing for Pyroar. I decide to venture to Route 16 to pick up the rare candy that I didn't get earlier, along with backtracking to Route 15 to battle some trainers that I didn't battle before. I even make a trip to the Lost Hotel to battle the few optional trainers in there. I'm level 58 after all the optional training, and I'm really hoping that I don't have to use my rare candies just to get by Lysander. I've also switched up my moveset some, which now consists of Spiky Shield, Swords Dance, Return, and Wood Hammer. Return has max base power now, and will give me neutral damage against all of Lysander's Pokémon. It would have been nice to hit level 60 before this battle to get access to Hammer Arm, but I'll have it for the final 2 Lysander battles. Like in the first battle, I get a Swords Dance setup, and I manage to get off 2 Spiky Shields just to deal a little bit of chip damage to Mienfoo. While Acrobatics does do about half damage to me, I do have the leftovers for this battle, so that I'm not hurting too bad. With a Swords Dance set up, Return is able to one-shot both Murkrow and Pyroar, and although Gyarados' Intimidate lowers our attack stat by 1 stage, Woodhammer is able to one-shot it. And this is the part of the run where I talk about Lysander's goals and ambitions. Lysander, he wants to create a perfect utopia, and how he wants to do this is similar to Zamasu in Dragon Ball Super. That big weapon he has hidden in Geosenge Town? Let's just call that his version of the Zero Mortal plan. He wants to create a world of greater beauty, and he wants Xerneas, the life Pokemon, to help him achieve this. There's really nothing more I can talk about here. This is like trying to find filler for the Rocket plotline in Pokemon Gold, Silver, and Crystal. The only thing I can add is that, did you know Lysander makes an appearance in Pokemon Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon? I didn't, until Google told me. I'll play through those games one of these days. But let's capture Xerneas and then battle Lysander for the final time in this run. Because the game makes you start with Xerneas in your first party slot, we have to switch Chesnaught in, but thankfully, Mienshao does not go for acrobatics, and we're able to knock it out with Woodhammer. Against Honchkrow, I go for Spiky Shield just to deal a little bit of chip damage before finishing it off with Rock Tomb. Next up is Pyroar. I don't believe this thing has any moves on its moveset that do contact damage, so I go for Hammer Arm. Thankfully we outspeed, it does one-shot, and last is Lysander's Gyarados, which is going to Mega Evolve, giving it the Water and Dark typing, which is going to make Hammer Arm and Woodhammer both very effective options. Outrage doesn't do too much damage to me, as Hammer Arm is a 2-shot on Mega Gyarados. Lysander's plans are foiled, Xerneas is in our possession, and now we can watch him destroy his weapon and himself. But our journey is not over just yet. We can go to Route 18, since it has now been made available to us. I'm going to pick up a lot of optional battles here. The final gym leader is Wolfric, the Ice-type gym leader, who I think Chesnaught is going to struggle against. Once I arrive in Koraway Town, I immediately go pick up the rare candy, I battle against Professor Sigamore, and then battle against Shauna, Tierno, and Trevor. My prize for beating all of them is the HM for Waterfall. And now it's time to see how good or bad this battle against Wolfric will be. He leads with Abomasnow, whose ability Snow Warning sets up the hail immediately. I go for Hammer Arm, which is a one-shot on it, but the drawback is that my speed is lowered 1 stage, and this is going to prove to be awful against Cryogonal. It gets off a Confuse Ray, and I hit myself the first turn. It then hits me with Ice Beam, doing decent damage as we knock it out with Hammer Arm, but last is Avalugg. Not knowing what to expect, I go for Spiky Shield on the first turn as it sets up a curse. I go for Rock Tomb on the next turn, which doesn't do a lot of damage, and it goes for Avalanche, KOing me. I was actually talking with Speedrunner0218 at the time of this loss, and he suggested getting Stone Edge. However, I decided to teach Power Up Punch before doing so. After all, this strategy worked for Delphox, and Stone Edge will come in handy against Malva in the Elite Four. With Power Up Punch on my moveset, the second battle is completely one-sided. While Abomasnow's Ice Beam does well over half to Chesnaught, Thanks to Power Up Punch, I have 3 attack boosts going into the Avalugg, which I just go for Hammer Arm to one-shot it. That's all 8 gym badges down, but there are a few errands I still need to run before heading to Victory Road. I'm going to slide on out of Wulfric's gym and head back to Corway Town, where we can get the TM for Rock Slide, since we can now use Waterfall outside of battle. Within Victory Road, though, we have one last rival battle against Callum. And let me just say, I'm glad that TMs are reusable in these games. Callum leads with Meowstic for the final time. Woodhammer is able to get the one-shot, but here's where the battle comes unraveled. Delphox is next, and I don't have anything that can do super effective damage to it. I go for Power Up Punch just for the attack boost, and Psychic does huge damage to me. Even with leftover recovery, I'm not going to be able to withstand its next attack, and that's exactly what happens. In the rematch though, I have Rock Slide on my moveset, and I'm hoping Rock Slide is enough for Delphox and I didn't make a mistake by skipping Stone Edge for now. Woodhammer is still able to one-shot Meowstic, and Rock Slide doesn't one-hit Delphox. Psychic hits hard, but I do have leftover recovery. I'm able to knock it out the next turn, and out comes Altaria. This thing does know Dazzling Gleam, which it uses after Rock Slide fails to get the one-shot, but thankfully Altaria has a pathetic attack stat. I take it out with Woodhammer, and next up is Absol. We have Hammer Arm to take care of it, and it will be a one-shot. The only Pokemon left is Jolteon, whose attacks we resist, and I'm hoping that Woodhammer or Hammer Arm will be enough to get the one-shot. I go for Spiky Shield just to block some damage and get some extra recovery, which Discharge does maybe 20 HP, and Woodhammer does get the one-shot. After beating Callum, we can progress towards the Gauntlet of the 3 trainers, but there's a waterfall beforehand. I get caught by the hiker at the top of it, beat him quickly, and then we can get the TM for Dragon Claw. I battle the 3 trainer Gauntlet at the end of Victory Road, and for Chesnaught, they proved to be very easy. But before I head to the Elite Four, we're going to backtrack and pick up some TMs. The TM for Bulk Up, and the TM for Stone Edge. Since Delphox was able to hang on from a Rock Slide, I definitely think Malva's Pokemon will be able to as well, especially her pesky Torkoal, which likes to set up with Curse. As far as the Elite Four themselves, I think I'm going to save Malva for last, since she's definitely the toughest matchup, and I think I'm going to go with the easiest matchup first, against Seabold, the Water-type specialist. And my moveset for this battle is going to be Spiky Shield, Stone Edge, Hammer Arm, and Woodhammer. Stone Edge is purely to deal with Gyarados, but Woodhammer makes quick work of both Clawitzer and Starmie. Because of Intimidate, we can't one-shot Gyarados with Stone Edge as it gets off a Dragon Dance. It now outspeeds and hits me with Ice Fang, but it doesn't get a freeze, and we're able to knock it out with a second Stone Edge. All that's left is Barbaracle, and we have Woodhammer to one-shot it. I decided to take on Wickstrom next, and my moveset for this battle is Spiky Shield, Swords Dance, Hammer Arm, and Shadow Claw. Unfortunately, Klefki starts the battle by using Torment. I'm switching between Swords Dance and Spiky Shield due to this. Eventually it gets off a Dazzling Gleam, which does about a quarter, but my attack is boosted enough to where I can go for Shadow Claw to knock it out. Out next is Aegislash. I go for Spiky Shield, anticipating an attack, but it goes for King Shield. I go for Shadow Claw on the next turn, and even in its shield form, we one-hit KO it. Scizor is next, and I decide to go for Spiky Shield just to get some HP recovery. It goes for X-Scissor and damages itself in the process. Shadow Claw can then knock it out. All that's left is Probopass, and this thing has Sturdy. I decide to go for Spiky Shield, as it goes for Flash Cannon. Shadow Claw surprisingly doesn't trigger Sturdy, and Flash Cannon does pathetic damage, and we knock it out, getting a victory over Wickstrom. Next up is Drasna, and you only need to know one thing about her. I have added Dragon Claw to my moveset, and I still have Swords Dance. I set up a Swords Dance on Dragalge, as Sludge Bomb does almost half, and from here, the battle is mine. It's a one-shot sweep on the rest of her Pokemon. Although I was worried if we would outspeed Noivern or not. because it does have Flamethrower on its moveset, and I wasn't sure if Chesnaught would be able to tank that or not. Last up is our toughest matchup against Malva, and my moveset is Spiky Shield, Swords Dance, Hammer Arm, and Stone Edge. We outspeed Pyroar, and Stone Edge is able to one-shot it. However, we don't outspeed Talonflame, and the 4-time super effective Brave Bird does massive damage to me. However, our 4-time super effective Stone Edge KOs it, but we don't have a lot of HP left for Chandelure or Torkoal. Thankfully, Stone Edge one-shots Chandelure, and Torkoal decides it doesn't want to attack me. I go for Spiky Shield anticipating some sort of an attack, but it just sets up Curse 2 turns in a row, and Stone Edge is able to get the job done. All that's left between Chesnaught and the Hall of Fame is Champion Diantha, and if we don't outspeed her Gardevoir, we're in for a rough time. We're not going to beat Delphox this time, but perhaps we can beat Aegislash and Greninja still. Let's do the dang thing. As we know, Diantha leads with Hawlucha, and we know how much trouble Karina's Hawlucha gave us early on in this run. I set up Swords Dance turn 1 as Flying Press does well over half to me. I go for Spiky Shield anticipating another, but it goes for Swords Dance. I might as well go on the offensive from here. Shadow Claw one-shots Hawlucha, and we level up going into the Aurorus. I decide let's set up one more time as it goes for Reflect. I go for Spiky Shield, not sure what to expect, and it goes for Blizzard, which we block. From here, I decide let's stay on the offensive. Shadow Claw one-shots it, and that's 2 turns of that Reflect stalled out. Next is Goodra. I set up my final Swords Dance as Fire Blast does over half of my remaining HP. I go for Spiky Shield just to stall out the Reflect, and then Shadow Claw to finish it. With +6 in attack, as long as we outspeed her remaining Pokemon, there's going to be nothing that can stop me. Shadow Claw is able to one-shot Gourgeist and Tyrantrum, but the real question, will we outspeed Gardevoir, especially when it Mega Evolves? And the answer to that question is yes. Chesnaught is able to outspeed it, Shadow Claw one-shots it, and with that, we have claimed victory over Champion Diantha. Chesnaught finishes with a final in-game time of 6 hours and 59 minutes. And now that we have 4 of these runs up on the channel, let's bring up a little tier list. Obviously, because Delphox has posted the best time so far, it's going to go in the S tier. And for now, Chesnaught in the A, Aegislash in the B, and Greninja in the C tier. Although I do want to redo Aegislash and Greninja in the near future here, because I think they can easily move up to that A tier. And obviously, as I complete more of these runs, I will shuffle Pokemon between the tiers. We have our post-game battle against AZ, and I actually wanted to see what happens if you lose this battle, and the answer is absolutely nothing. The credits proceed as normal. But as always, thank you for the continued support on the channel. I know this video took a little bit to get out, but I'm hoping to have a bit more free time for videos going forward. And I've got to work on a backlog of some Gen 1 solo runs I've got, so expect some of those in the next coming week. Expect the streams to continue as well, and expect some Gen 5 next month, because there's a certain Pokemon I'd like to run for my birthday. Special shout out to my one and only channel member, Chazzual Fridays, and I'll catch y'all in my next video. Which for the next X and Y solo run, we're going to be seeing how the early route bird performs. So I'm going to be doing a solo run with Talonflame. I'm expecting that one to be difficult, but we'll just have to wait and see. Take care everybody, I'll see you in the next one.